Parallel Planets podcast.
Hello, welcome to the Parallel Planets podcast. I'm here with Tony Sandy, who's very kindly contacted me to tell me about some of the unusual, supernatural, paranormal, strange experiences he's had throughout his life. Tony, thanks so much for being here. Do you want to start with the UFO experience when you were a teenager?
Oh yeah. That was one that, as they say, shook me to the core.
Right.
Um, I was coming home from school with a few friends, and I just suddenly noticed this sort of needle shape in the sky at a funny angle, sort of 45 degrees,
Mm.
just drifting very, very slowly across the sky, like it was an airship. But it wasn't an airship.
Mm.
It was, as somebody else said on an elsewhere. It was like a Zeppelin in a way, but there was nothing on it apart from, just a general shape. And the others walked on and went to the swings, which were close by, and they didn't pay any attention to it at all. And I stood sort of transfixed for about 10 minutes at least. And then I caught up with them, and there was no reaction to it. Nobody talked about it. Nobody seemed interested, just me.
How strange. That's really interesting because I had a chap on a couple of months ago who had an experience where he saw something unusual in the sky, and he was with some other people, but they didn't react to it really. They just carried on with their day as if nothing had happened. Why do you think that was? What do you think made your friends do that? Do you think?
Well, I think maybe they weren't actually interested in UFOs and they just
Hmm.
wanted to get home and, you know, just general ignorance. Ignorance as a deliberate stance, I don't want to know about that, so I'm going to ignore its existence.
Do you think it's something to do? Yeah, people are maybe a combination of being scared and also just that I suppose they don't want to say anything out loud in case they get ridiculed, maybe something along those
Yeah,
lines. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Oh, it's a
yeah. They don't
shame.
want to be responsible for the situation. If they say, "Oh, there's a UFO," that means they are open to other people to say things about it.
Yeah, I see. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you very briefly mentioned there. Were you always a bit more open-minded about that sort of thing beforehand anyway? Were you?
Oh,
Or,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, right.
I
So
mean, yeah,
it wasn't
I
that
read lots of books
experience that
about it.
opened
Yeah,
your eyes to it. You were
yeah,
open-minded to it anyway. Okay.
yeah.
What was the background there then before that sighting that sort of made you more open-minded to these things, if you don't mind saying?
Well, I haven't had any experiences before that one,
Mm.
but I read books on by John Keel, Jacques Vallée,
Yeah.
um, quite a few other people,
Yeah.
on the subject.
So with there was the you mentioned the UFO sighting when you were a teenager, and then
Yeah,
there were a couple other things that happened in that regard too, weren't there? In the years after.
yeah. There's a lot of things that sort of happened,
Hmm.
but it seemed to be sort of periods where suddenly something would happen and it would release a load of sightings and things like that.
Right.
The ones that I saw later, this was much, much later. I saw a sort of white shaped UFO going over power lines when I was traveling between Glasgow and the Highlands.
Yeah.
And as it came to the pylons themselves, the lines, it just disappeared. Not behind it, it just disappeared as it got to the power lines. And the thing was about it, it looked like it was just a white shape. It didn't look like it was something necessarily solid. So maybe it was formed of energy or something like that. And on the return trip, I saw the same thing again, but this time it didn't disappear because it wasn't near the power lines, but it was the same sort of craft again.
Sorry, what sort of shape was it again? This one?
The flying saucer with
It was
cupola on top. Yeah, yeah,
When you say it vanished the first time, what so as it sort of went down behind the power lines, it sort of
yeah, yeah,
disappeared as it went, and then okay,
yeah. This is the saucer, and as it's coming down, as it got to the power lines, it
yeah.
disappeared completely as it went through, like the power lines were somehow um removing its reality or something, because it went completely invisible.
some sort of, yeah, like some almost like that was a portal for it to, yeah, I see, yeah,
Yeah,
blimey.
yeah.
And sorry, where did that happen?
Up in the
That
Highlands.
was in the Highlands as well. So
Yeah.
is it, would you say there's a bit of a hot spot there in the Highlands for this sort of thing?
Oh yeah, I mean you got Bonnie Bridge,
Right.
and I mean there are some other I suppose incidents, but Bonnie Bridge seems to be the main area, but that's
Bonnie
well
Bridge.
below where we are. That's more what they call the Central Belt, the Highlands itself. Um, I don't think there's so many reports, but I suppose some of it just follows me.
Yeah, do you think that might be the case?
Oh, I do, I do.
Yeah. Okay.
As I say, I had what they call bedroom visitors, and I
Hmm.
don't take the stance that they appear because you're going to sleep. I think because you're going to sleep, you're more open to seeing things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as I say, there was an incident where um, my wife was in the kitchen and I was standing in the doorway, and she said, "Do you know there's a big hooded figure standing behind you?"
Oh, right.
Which was unusual because she that's about the only thing that she said she's seen that's sort of in that. And a few years after that, we moved up to another point in the Highlands called Thurso,
Yeah.
and she had to go down to Glasgow for something, and I was getting into bed, turned off the light, and just as the light was going off, I saw the same kind of held figure, like a monk standing up against the wardrobe.
Right.
Yeah,
So take your time on this. This is fascinating. So
yeah,
so it was when you explained the figure that you saw in the
mm,
bedroom when your wife was away to your
yeah.
wife when she was back. Did she clarify that that's exactly the same sort of figure that she saw behind you that time?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah, of course, skeptics would say there's no proof that they're connected. They may be two different figures, and you could both be hallucinating and all that. But we were both fully
Yeah.
conscious at the time, so
Well, that's the thing.
mm,
I've said it on other episodes, and I say it again. You don't have to believe everything, but you don't have to disbelieve everything. And if you've seen something with your own eyes and you
yeah.
can't explain it, then you're going to believe it, aren't you?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And then I find it a bit strange when you get skeptics who just shrug off everything. You
oh
know,
yeah,
I
yeah,
find it a bit peculiar. But then also, it's not so healthy to believe everything. On the flip side as well. So there's this middle ground. And I, like you, have had experiences in the past where I couldn't explain figures I've seen and things like that. So
yeah.
that it's a shame there's not more of a middle ground there, or where people don't clash so much. You see,
Oh
if
no,
you
no,
see what I mean. So
yeah.
you mentioned in your correspondence with me about you saw red-eyed insectoid creatures and a pumpkin-headed grey and things like this. Did you want to
Oh
spend
yeah,
some time
those
talking
were
about those as well?
those were bedroom visits that I had, and
Right,
when I saw the pumpkin-headed grey, again, he was for some reason he was at a slight angle. Um, I couldn't back that with anybody else seeing it. Um, but with the insect ones, I put it on this website, and this investigator contacted me and said, "Do you know that there's several people up and down the country that have seen exactly the same thing?" And it relates back to the Blue Mountains episode in Australia, where a woman said she could see them. And I think she was getting out the car and saying they're here and they're doing this, but the investigators in the car couldn't see anything.
right.
And I think that is down to the fact that you have to be in a certain mental state to see these things. And
Okay.
ordinary uh, consciousness doesn't allow for this. And I think that's another thing. I think if you're having all these kind of experiences all the time, you're kind of disabled by them, because you're not getting on with doing physical things, which is why I think a lot of people ignore that. They want to just get on with being a human being in a human body, carrying out a human life. And they see this as sort of interference in that.
Yeah, I suppose some people might see these things around and then just sort of think, no, I didn't see that. I'm just going to carry on with my
Oh,
day.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. freaks some people out, not others.
Of course. Yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
And again, I think that's down to the mental state you're in at the time, because I had uh, some sort of dreams that I labeled as the unknown, because they always freaked me out, and I always, shot back into wakefulness at that time because I thought, God, this is freaking me out, So
Okay.
I wanted to get hold of something solid, some real life, and not feel threatened by all this. So
Okay. So
mm,
when you talk about the your ideas about you have to be some people might have to be in a certain mental state to see these things.
yeah.
I'm interested to know what mental state you sort of mean. Like what area of the mental state are you talking about? Is
Well,
it like as simple as a sort of being halfway between happy and sad, or is it obviously I think
oh
something
no,
more a lot more than that.
it's not exactly emotional state.
Yeah.
Consciousness wise, I think you have to be passive receptive. In other words, you walk along, you aren't thinking about anything. If you're concentrating on something, if you're doing something, then you block out everything else to get on with what you're doing.
Hmm.
Um, so it's the complete opposite of that. Again, it's what I'm saying. If you're, sort of, I suppose, a medium of some sort, that you're going to be knocked out by all this happening. You can't really do anything physical much because you've got all this sort of stuff coming in and you're being receptive to it all the time.
Yeah, I have spoken to some mediums before where yeah, it's almost as though they struggle to sort of turn it off because
Oh yeah, yeah.
they're walking around and constantly seeing things all the time, and yeah, I mean, it must be a horrifying place to be sometimes.
Oh yeah. Mm.
So you've been in the Highlands for quite some time, or all your life, is it? Or
30 years. Before that, I was in Norfolk. I was brought up in a place called Dis in Norfolk. So
oh yeah, I've seen that on the map. Yeah, and
yeah, yeah.
so you say something about encounters with dead or dying pets. Are you comfortable talking about that?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Again, it was like the alien bedroom visitors. And
Hmm.
one night I woke up and our first dog, I just saw it sort of floating up towards the ceiling.
Wow.
And a few months later, it was gone. It died, and it'd been sort of ill. It got a benign tumor which was pushing up
Hmm.
against its body, and you sort of see it sticking out, so it couldn't walk properly. And one of the other dogs, I was upstairs, and this was in daylight, full daylight. Um, it wanted to be with us, but it belonged to somebody else. And
Yeah.
I looked in the car, and in the back of the car, I could see it moving around, and it wasn't with us. It was at home with the owner.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, yeah, I,
That's it. So you said so first one you said there, the first dog, you said you woke up in the night and saw the dog floating,
yeah,
but the
yeah.
dog was still alive at that time. That
Oh,
wasn't.
it's still alive at that point.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah.
So
It's like what
the physical body of the dog was
yeah.
floating in the room at the time.
Oh, well, not the physical form, what they call astral projection, because it looked
Oh, right, yeah.
exactly like the dog, but it was separate from the body.
Goodness me.
Yeah.
Is that something you'd experienced in any other way before, astral projection, or is that first and only time you've seen something
That's
like
the
that?
first and only time I was aware of it. Yeah, yeah.
I've not heard of it happening with animals before. I've only ever really heard it with
Oh, God.
humans, but goodness me, that is fascinating. I've never ever heard of that before with an
Oh,
animal.
and a few years later, that dog, we ended up with it, and
Yeah.
it ended up being crippled with arthritis, and it died in our bedroom. And a few days after that, I saw it. I was down the end of the corridor, and down where the bedrooms were, I could see it running about madly like this, like it regained its ability to
Right.
move.
You mentioned something about a poltergeist incident in your life as
Ah,
well.
yeah, yeah.
Did you want to share that with
Um,
me?
yep, yep.
Thank
That
you.
was a brother-in-law who died, and we didn't realize he died. But the morning he died, I heard the doorbell go and rushed downstairs. This was about sometime after 3 o'clock in the morning.
Hmm.
Opened the door, nobody there, nothing in the streets, all quiet. So I went back to bed. then the following day, I heard a knocking on the door. And again, it was about the same time. I rushed downstairs, nobody there, nothing. Now, the thing is, one of our dogs was downstairs, didn't react either time. And
Right.
my wife didn't react. And she was upstairs, with me in bed. And there wasn't any reaction from her at all, like they hadn't physically heard it going.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was funny, the knocking and the doorbell ring, because it didn't sound like our doorbell.
Hmm.
And it didn't sound right for knocking on the door either. It's just something strange about it. But as I say, he died. And then several days after that, I came downstairs to go into the bathroom, to have a shower. And we got one of these Kärcher things that I use to clean the shower after we have, afterwards. And there's a piece of plastic and it was sticking out about that far from it. And I thought, that's odd. How did that happen? And I went to close the shower door and it's the same thing, piece from the shower,
Right.
um, sticking out as well.
Have you ever been an investigator of these things, or is it just sort of things that you've remembered throughout your life, parallel to
Yeah.
another career?
Oh, no, no, I was a member of ASAP, which is the
Oh yeah,
Association for, oh, you know it, do you?
yeah. I had a chap on last week.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
done quite
yeah.
a bit of work with the Mike Benbow Smith, no, Mike Benbow Jackson. Sorry, yeah, I had him
Oh,
on
right,
last week.
yeah.
Yeah, sorry, you were saying, yeah, you're a member of ASAP.
Yeah, yeah. And we went to investigate somewhere, some castle,
Hmm.
but nothing happened. It was a sort of, through the night. And we got there
Yeah.
about like 7 or 8, and then we were there till the early morning. But nobody reported anything, so that was a bit of a
Oh.
dead end.
They are a bit tiring. I've been on a few of those, and yeah,
Oh,
you have to
yeah,
be up
yeah,
all night, don't you? I had to go and sleep in the
yeah,
car
yeah.
eventually. I just couldn't stay awake any longer. But that was
Wow.
after we had some strange things happen.
Oh,
Yeah, we're in a village in Essex called Sybil Headingham at an old pub, and one of the things that happened, we were in the cellar trying to make contact, and one of the tops of one of the kegs just suddenly lifted up and flew across the room, and we all saw it
oh,
lift up, fly across the room. Yeah. So yeah,
oh.
these things do happen. Yeah. So you've done some ghost hunts with ASAP over the years. You've
Yeah,
done
yeah.
anything UFO related as well?
Not really, no.
No.
Just had my own experience
Yeah. Well, fair
happening
enough.
around me, yeah, so I don't need any more.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and then you said something about you had an experience at Loch Ness, but brackets not the monster. So would you like to talk about that for a?
Oh yeah, yeah. Again, I was sitting in this caravan which is over Castle Urquhart in Loch Ness. And I was just looking at the window again. My mind was blank, wasn't thinking about anything, and suddenly the other side, it suddenly turned into something sort of like corrugated cardboard, in the
Right.
rock,
All
which
right.
was rather strange. And also, I knew somebody further along the loch, and
Hmm.
they'd had experiences. Like they thought there must be a UFO base up where they were because in the
Right.
middle of the night they'd hear this clanging, like hangar doors being shut and things. And they'd see lights come flying through the air as well.
Goodness.
Yeah,
There's rumors that there's UFO activity around Loch Ness as well. I didn't know that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Although there's only one report I've ever come across, and that was on the other side of the lock, the doors
Hmm.
side. And somebody said they saw a craft landed and beings walking around it, but that seems to have
I
been
think,
about it.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think I remember reading that one actually. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
So Scotland's quite a hotbed of activity by the sounds of it, or certainly in some of the areas near the Highlands, you were saying as
Oh,
well.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because also there are what's called big cat sightings. There's a
Mm.
stuffed one in the Inverness Museum, and
Oh.
when I was in the caravan, as I say, I was talking
Yeah.
to my landlady, and suddenly her dog started barking and looking towards the caravan where I stayed.
Mm.
And there was this black cougar-like cat standing on a ridge above the caravan. And the night before, I was in bed and I could hear this scratching, like
Oh,
there was a cat outside, a real cat.
right.
But there was no sign in the morning that anything had been there, but there have been
Goodness
several
me.
sightings of cats there.
So that's ABCs or alien big cats,
Yeah,
as they call
yeah,
them.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
They seem to be focused around a place called Cannock.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Cannock in Scotland. Right. Okay. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It's
Oh, right. Yeah.
further, yeah, not Cannock Chase,
Yeah,
further
yeah.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's further back from where Loch Ness is, maybe 5 or 10 miles further on inland from there.
Goodness me. And what do you think? What's your views on the alien big cats then? Because I'm hearing more and more recently that some people think they're sort of maybe even other dimensional and they're coming through a portal or something. What you got to say to that, do you think?
Well, it's funny you should say that. I've just been reading some books by somebody called Rex Gilroy in Australia, and he was saying that he got reports of people, um, sort of time slip episodes, and there's
Mm.
also cases where dinosaurs, Tyrannosaurus Rex, like creatures have been seen suddenly appearing, like they're
No.
coming out of a portal and suddenly disappearing into one as well. And there's
Wow.
footprints that suddenly stop in the middle of nowhere. And one
Wow.
guy, he was sort of looking for predators because somebody reported their cattle had been killed. And they went looking
Mm.
um, in this area. And he said he was sort of looking in this area and it sort of turned into a big jungle area. And there were two Tyrannosaurus Rex like creatures sort of fighting. One of them killed the other one. And then suddenly it all disappeared and it was back to how it would be a normal scrub. So
Wow.
yeah.
That's pretty
So I think there's a
mind-boggling, isn't it?
lot of activity out there, maybe not as much as maybe more than America.
In Australia, there's a
In
lot of activity.
Australia, yeah. No, nobody
Oh.
talks about Australia, but I think there's a lot going on down there.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
remember that there was that famous UFO sighting above a pub in Australia, and the UFO was like a pair of horns in the air or something. I don't know if you've ever
Mm.
read that one. That was quite
No,
interesting.
no, I missed that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Rex Gilroy, did you say?
Rex Gilroy, yeah.
Rex Gilroy,
He
okay.
died last year in June, I
Okay.
think it was.
Tony, thanks ever so much for your time. Are there any other experiences you wanna mention, or have we covered most of it there? Because I'm going to start rounding it up now.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's about
Good.
fine.
Good. Well, that's brilliant.
Yeah.